reasons. So first, they mentioned about the dancing thing in the elevator. But as you mentioned, CCTV is in public places, and an elevator is a public place. How can you expect to have your, this is kind of like my reason, but how can you expect that your privacy is protected in a public place? Everyone's looking at you, so you can't exactly say that. Reject. And you also said, actually that's the end of our, reject, that's the end of our rebuttals. And moving on to our first reason. First, privacy can't be protected in public places. As said in the definition, CCTV is a system in public places. Every day, millions and millions visit public places, and even more walk through public places. Since CCTV is installed in most public places, unless you're hiding under your sheets, how do you expect to have your privacy not exposed? According to The Guardian, in the UK, there are about 1.85 million CCTVs only in public places alone, and in London's tube system, in other words, London subway system, there are as many as 11,000 CCTVs. There are so many CCTVs only in the UK. Imagine how many there are in the whole wide world. However, we face more people when in public places. Have you ever ridden the subway without making any eye contact with a single person? Have you ever ridden the subway without being seen by a single person? Honestly, it is highly impossible for a person to traverse publicly without having our privacy at least somewhat infringed upon. CCTV is just like another pair of eyes watching you. Actually, if you think about it, CCTV isn't another pair, it's just one eye looking at you. It's not a threat if it can't be fully protected in the first place. If someone is going to whine about not having their privacy protected due to CCTV, they should just go hide under their sheets and not come out for a long time. Speaker, are you ready?
Say that
2 minutes.
privacy occurs even if you are also the picture has no
just the introduction just a way to show and bring everyone into this.
And they said privacy doesn't
If not wrong, then it is our right to separate.
maybe you could redefine it.
Yeah, we don't have to. They say there is no law because it is our right.
Yeah, because they just contradicted definition.
And they talked about the first argument about this by saying privacy.
But that's just a hook, so we can't attack that. But
like it's a walk, the footage of someone walking down the street that's on the internet. So why is privacy good?
The government
I don't know. You have to have a film of this. You can understand. Okay.
Yeah.
we see what's talking about elevators.
40 years.
Elevator.
All right.
Tomorrow will judge and fellow debaters and the deputy prime minister of the government. Regardless of the opposition's arguing, which sounded to me like a child resonating for the latest smartphone, they still strongly believes that CCTV is a threat to our freedom. Before I start my speech, I'll rebut several things that the opposition has made. First, the leader of the opposition rebutted about our prime minister's dancing, which was not even evidence, but it was used as anecdotal evidence. And I believe the right to set definition is on government side, that the opposition don't have the right to challenge it without proper reason.
From now on, I'll begin my speech. CCTVs are being misused. I'll explain about misuse of CCTV by hacking and officers. We all know that someone is always watching us through CCTV, but that someone is maybe not the someone that we usually think of. The problem is that CCTV is so vulnerable at hacking. HD Moore, CTO of Security Tools, have mentioned the vulnerabilities allow for unauthenticated access to the device configuration, which includes the clear text usernames and passwords that once obtained can be used to execute arbitrary system command routes or secondary.
Would you repeat that sentence is about how
POC is not remain for repeatance, but it remains for the clarification. Hopefully, without further interruptions, the HD Moore have said once obtained can be used to execute arbitrary systems routes through a secondary flow in the web interface. CCTV is so easy to hack. In a research of Shodan search engine, Rias and McCormick have found that some systems are even visible on the internet. Yes, please.
The hacking is not about don't you think the hacking is not about the CCTV itself, the CCTV who are operating CCTV?
I'll mention that later. Hopefully, without further interruptions, CCTVs are so easy to hack. But Rias and McCormick, for notice security researchers with silence, found some systems available over the internet. Not only this, for the CCTVs we have to type ID and passwords. But you know what? Justin Kaka, senior security engineer of the Department of Digital Science, did research about security of CCTV cameras, and he found out more than 70% of CCTV systems' password was 1234 or 1111, and the username was admin or user. This CCTV system was even hacked by an elementary school student, according to NAPA organization. Regarding the National Human Rights Commission, the average exposure of one person to CCTV was 83 times a day. 83 times a day! Someone might be watching you. This is a clear invasion of one's portrayed rights. Also, what's more serious is that it could be used as a tool of crime. Imagine that CCTV gets into criminal's hand. I don't think I have to use my time to explain what it will trigger. But this will make everyone start to live in risk. As the opposition proved for us that there are many CCTVs applying the world. It proves our point that CCTVs are so vulnerable at hackers using it. Yes, please.
Don't you think that people are just do you really think that people are really watching you and suspecting you as a criminal for 83 times a day?
I'll mention you later, but the problem is this can be also as sexual harassment, which I'll mention later. Hopefully, without any further interruptions, CCTVs are also misused by officials. Would you believe that officials use the CCTV to look at their dogs, parents, and wife? Unfortunately, it's true. 10,888 times was caught in the last 5 years, according to the No CCTV organization. Let me repeat that. 10,288 times was caught. And according to Camera Watch, the UK watchdog on CCTV compliance with the Data Protection Act, 90% of CCTV systems do not comply with the law. Out of purpose. We gave government our tax for CCTV. We sacrificed our rights and our freedom to use our money freely. However, look at CCTV. It risks our right to live and right to portraits with the vulnerability of hacking. It threatens our tax usage, our right to freely use money by officials using it out of purpose. Even though technology was developed for human benefit, it can cause devastating impact. Albert Einstein's theory of relativity gave birth to atomic bomb. Alfred Nobel's dynamite was designed for miners, but ended up with a lot of people's lives doing worse. Even though CCTV might be developed for citizens, it still threatens our freedom. While preparing this debate, I saw so many news about CCTV being used as sexual harassment, which a member of the government will mention later. But what is important is, I feel so shocked that I might be the target of those sexual harassment. As a girl, as a woman, it's such a terrifying feeling. You know what? That 30% of dressing room has CCTV inside. So, why do I have to fear this kind of things in my town, in my way? I don't understand. You should too, as a girl. It's protection time. You should too, as a girl. Some man might watch you, some strange man. There are lots of cases and statistics about CCTV use as sexual harassment, which our member of government will mention soon. While passing the torch of this debate to the member of government, Mr. Speaker, I end my time.
2 minutes.
You did everything I wanted.
I like staring at me for a long time. Your eyes were strange.
And you know how
Now you're
Yeah. Tony Hunting.
scores a goal.
Yeah.
There is no resolution.
I feel tired.
Yeah, don't enter the street.
Rising action, falling.
Rising action. No. Rising action.
You can say ask a ridiculous POI.
Even though
That
is not appropriate.
And give a ridiculous answer.
Don't
do that.
damage your
That will damage your revenue.
That's why we should change
Use a POI.
Yeah, so like the part that.
Mr. Speaker, until when are we allowed to change the definition? Isn't it until the Deputy Prime Minister?
Or
So after this,
definition.
okay, so definition resides on the
That's
government side, you mean?
What?
The definition resides on the government side.
yeah, so
Yeah,
Okay.
the definition is not.
Finish.
Yeah.
Finished.
Otherwise, we can sit here and have a debate about a definition.
That's a coincidence.
Yeah. That's good.
Or love, whatever.
why did someone do this, Beach?
Okay.
Take it over.
Ladies and gentlemen, and dear Mr. Speaker, I'd like to introduce myself as a deputy of a leader of opposition. And today I'm here to talk about the standing as an opposition. Firmly believes that CCTV is not threat to our freedom with a lot of reasons. First of all, before I will move on to a reason, I want to do some rebuttals about it. First of all, the Deputy Prime Minister stated that our leader of opposition is rebutting against them about the anecdotes. However, he used this anecdote in his reason. So it's really reasonable to attack that example. And second of all, they talked about there's no reason at all that we explain about why we should change the definition. Yeah, well, you guys gave us tons of examples, and that's about why we should change the definition. First of all, you guys talked about that CCTVs are easy to hack. If the government is operating the CCTV, won't it be more secure? Not like that. And also, you guys talked about the government side talked about that. And 90% of the CCTVs are compliant of the law, and it go against the law. However, if it goes against the law, why would governments do it? Right. And thirdly, they And thirdly, they talked about they mentioned about the dressing room without any source. Then how can we really believe like the government's opinion? And moving on to our point, dear Mr. Speaker, the police should be the one protecting us from ultimate social problems. And however, there was an incident in 2011 that 2 police officers are caught in CCTV beating up the 15-year-old boy without any reason. Shocking. And the people start to think of that it is time for us to start using cameras to surveil them too. As this kind of interactive surveillance, Mr. Speaker, that should be enough for you to reject what the proposition is arguing today. We, the opposition, strongly believe that CCTV is not a threat to our freedom, and our second reason is that CCTV is a tool for accountability, and thirdly, CCTV allows us to have a lot of information that benefits us. To move on our second reason, we are starting to CCTV make people more accountable for its action. Mr. Speaker, according to the U.S. Department of Labor, CCTVs are used in order to ensure increased security and prevent violence in the
More
workplace.
information.
Yeah,
How does that relate to the topic we're discussing now?
I'm going to talk about it.
CCTV.
I'm going to talk about it. Surprisingly, violence in the workplace results in 500,000 employees losing a total 1 million working days due to the workplace violence. The beatings, intimidation, harassment, and of any nature are the examples of such violence. So what's the solution to this kind of act? The CCTV. How can we ensure? According to the same labor statistics from the US government, there are more and more companies are turning to the CCTV today. Why? It turns out that CCTV saves companies billions of dollars while not diminishing the public image and security, making CCTV a deterrent of bad behavior. Which clearly shows that
information.
Okay.
So do you mean that companies' $1 billion is important than our citizens' right?
This is not about citizen life. This talked about how people were doing more accountable actions due to the CCTV. And Mr. Speaker, workplace encourages workers to conduct themselves professionally while they're at work. Thirdly, I'm going to move on to reasons that we can have a lot of beneficial through CCTV. For example, when CCTV collects information about where the crimes happen or where the traffic jam happened. So, but the government won't just stop there. They will get more facilities for the places where there's more crimes happen. When there's a lot of traffic jam, people make their alternative ways to do it. And it's common sense that we look at the navigation or have ideas about what's going on in the traffic so we can go reach the place really fast. This kind of things like preventing crime or helping preventing from a crime or having information about the traffic, those kind of really beneficial information are from CCTV. And this justifies the act of people CCTV looking at us. Thank you.
They said because it's not secure. Oh, if it's not secure, why government do it? No, we are saying that government should not do it. Yes, they are doing our side. We have opposition. Yes, we vote. This is really. If it's not secure, why government?
So this is about the crime and this is about the
It's not valid.
and their recent use of KYC just cause it
No, he is perfect this time.
Do I have to state our definition or just say that our definition of course. They said we don't have any, but we have to say them. So I said it's not means we don't.
Yeah, just some of the sources.
90% was what?
But this was according to the actually based on the camera was doing
Say that we specifically mentioned that due to the conditions lack of concentration, they want to use this.
Yeah, that's it's a matter of the operators. And they talk about saying the old places for what's going on.
All right, it's time. Just wishing they would say it.
To my honorable judge and my fellow debaters, I am the member of government. Although our opposition has tried fruitlessly to convince us that CCTV is not a threat to rights, like a criminal who tries to convince the jury for his innocence, this House remains unconvinced. Furthermore, we, the government side, believe that CCTV is a threat to our freedom because of the following reason that CCTV corners women and minorities, going against the sacred rights. However, before I start my argument, I would first like to rebut some of the points that the opposition has made. First, they have rebutted our Prime Minister's anecdotal evidence saying that it was part of the reasoning. However, this was used as a means to introduce the topic, and therefore it is ridiculous to rebut this point. And that they have proven that CCTVs could save billions of dollars for the companies. However, I see no connection between that fact and the proposition we are arguing today, that CCTV protects freedom. And also, they have rebutted our sources that 90% of the CCTVs are against the Data Protection Act. However, due to their lack of concentration, they have not listened to the Deputy Prime Minister explaining that it was from a news source called Camera Watch. Now let me continue my point. CCTV corners women and minorities, going against the sacred right that no one shall be subjected to arbitrary interference with his privacy. Everyone has the right to the protection of the law against such interference or attacks. As the yes?
Would you think that everyone is minorities in every sense?
Yes, because everyone is equal between the law. So against such interference or attacks, as the Universal Declaration of Human Rights rightly says, according to a well-known news site called The Guardian, in England, a policy called Project Champion was revealed and brought pandemonium. The project was that large Muslim neighborhoods will be monitored with a network of 169 automatic number plate recognition cameras. The cameras, which include dozens of covert ones, secretly installed in the street, form rings of steel so that residents may be tracked entering or leaving the area. After this incident, the West Midlands Police and the Birmingham City Council apologized for mistakes around the project and promised that bags will be placed over the cameras to reassure the community that they will switch while public consultation takes place, which proves that, yes?
Don't you think that those kind of cameras have any benefits to their society?
You mean the benefits that the government has control of citizens? So some might ask, what is the problem if they apologize? The problem is that the police and city council has overlooked the Muslims' right of privacy. The problem is that their right to be considered innocent until the crime has happened, or even be revealed, has been ignored. And the biggest problem of all is that our sources tell us that these incidents will happen again. As Acton rightly says, power tends to corrupt, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And that's not even all. According to the American Civil Liberties Union, CCTV has been used in other inappropriate manners as the following. Experts studying how camera systems in Britain were operated have also found that mostly male operators frequently use the cameras to spy on women. Fully 1 in 10 women were targeted for entirely voyeuristic reasons, the researchers found. How would you feel if you were that woman? As a woman, how would you feel if you were that woman? Would you still agree for CCTVs to be operated? I am deeply angry that humanity has learned nothing at all. Ladies and gentlemen, please remember the Watergate scandal. No, thank you. How President Nixon misused cameras for his own benefit. How he was thrown out of the office. How many of his top officers have been persecuted. Please remember the unfortunate women, the victims of male officers. I hope, please consider that how CCTV has been numerously misused in the past, present, and will be in the future that will follow. I hope this House is not alone to fully realize how more CCTVs are used, and with all due respect, that our honorable judge here today to judge this honorable debate will finally realize the terrible truth about CCTVs. While my debate is closing to an end, it is not the final end. In fact, this is actually a point of change, a point of innovation into a new era of openness and trust, without surveillance, without CCTVs. Mr. Speaker, I yield my time.
You mentioned about the reason you mentioned it was because that first of all the work.
Why would the government do this?
And I missed that one. So those were
Why do burglars rob and why do murderers?
Productivity is one way to prove that people are taking your not
their assets exactly.
Me too. Privacy is there's no privacy in terms of however, there is the And there is the rights of privacy because the rights are provided and guaranteed in all kinds of circumstances.
Also, the benefits of society doesn't relate to personal rights.
Without surveillance, they will want to go. Without surveillance mean that without surveillance.
I don't know.
They were really talking about how the kids do with society.
I'm asking that this is a rebuttal.
I'm sorry, but
they said that we didn't say that these are related to a freedom or right. And you really didn't mention it, but if I mention it in my rebuttal, I said, okay, you're not talking about CCTV being a tool. Okay, good. Mr. Speaker and fellow debaters, I'm the member of the opposition, and we are here to argue that CCTV is not a threat to our freedom. But before I get to our side's reason, I would like to rebut the flaws made by the government side. Well, I'd like to mention, as the third speaker, about the definition. The second and the third speaker kept on saying that we the opposition didn't actually have a reason to change their definition. However, if you look at the CCTVs in this room, and even in the CCTVs that the first speaker mentioned in the elevators, those CCTVs are not run by government. That's why, and that's because, and this is why we are trying to redefine the definition, since the reasons that we provide, and also the government side provides, is not under this definition. Also, we like to point out that the second speaker, when our second speaker, POI to the second speaker of the government side, we had said that we had asked about that CCTV is not a problem, but it's the matter of the operator. And the second speaker had said that she would later mention it, but she never did in her speech, or the third speaker. And also, this is a really big thing. If a person has a hammer in his hand and killed a person with that hammer, is it the hammer's fault? Is it the criminal's fault? Well, CCTV is a...
POI?
Yes.
How can you compare simple matters like hammers with a very complex issue like CCTVs?
So then I'll talk about CCTV. So I was just comparing hammer. Then you're saying that CCTV is, so you're saying that CCTV can look into people and CCTV wants to look at those women and have sexual harassment? No, I'm just joking around. Information. No, thank you. But people, as the third speaker mentioned, especially that male operators look at women to do sexual harassment. But look, male operators, it's the operator's problem. If those people working around with CCTV don't commit these problems, CCTV wouldn't be a threat to our freedom. Now, I'll go on to my reason. I'll continue by expanding on our side's fourth reason about safety, and that CCTV protects our freedom to be safe. First of all, a CCTV can prevent a crime by deterring potential criminals with a physical presence of a camera. A few years ago, Chicago authorities installed a camera in a public park. Prior to the installation of the cameras, the park had experienced a brief spike in crime with more than 500 incidents in just a month. But after the cameras were put in place, crime dropped 20% the following month and stayed low.
Point of information?
Yes.
Isn't that post-hoc and Proctor hoc fallacy?
No, I don't think so, because they're also, this is not the only case that happened. Also, CCTVs can help police catch criminals and prosecute them. In 2005, terrorists bombed the London subway trains, which killed 52 civilians and injured more than 700 people. The police worked back from bomb sites to identify the attackers' movements. On the fourth day of reviewing footage, the police caught the bombers on the CCTV. Since it was a suicide attack, the police couldn't arrest the bombers, but they did get enough information that could have got them arrested, and also found many information that found the other people that was related to the bombing incident, which did prevent further bombings from happening. And also,
thirdly, the existence of a CCTV reduces people's fear. Even if nothing bad happens, think about it, especially women or girls. If you're walking home from academy or some late at night and you're in an elevator and you're with a stranger, even if nothing bad happens to you, you might feel a little nervous. But because there's a CCTV and you know that someone would be watching through it, you will be insured. Mr. Speaker. No, thank you. Mr. Speaker, the government side is trying to argue that CCTV is a threat to our freedom, but as I just explained in my reasons, CCTV protects one of the biggest rights that we have, the freedom to feel safe. If CCTVs were a threat to our freedom, we wouldn't have had safety either, but we're certain that we do. CCTV allows us to be free to spend quality time with friends until the wee hours of morning, and free to study for our exams sometime until dark, and then head home without anxiety. I'm glad to be free. Mr. Speaker, I yield my time.
Okay, they talk about and also yeah, like and like the thing can be like nuclear weapons, so like it's just a nuclear weapons fall, so you can just keep it making them.
I mean, the government just against the definition. That's how the debate can be working. We have like keep saying that we're saying that you're that why do you do CCTV? Then how can we have
My head. Privacy,
like to make like the government stop. Yes, oh my gosh, if we say that. You have so many things to tell.
So many things to say, like
yeah, but you can.
You can.
Why didn't you do it? You guys.
We are too busy doing all this. Sorry for that. That's what the real
Okay, that's time.
Mr. Speaker, I am the last speaker of the government whip, here to summarize and conclude today's debate. And we, the government, believe that we have firmly proved the proposition is justified. The opposition, on the other hand, has failed completely and has been very disappointing with their performance. Now, before I explain how so, I would first like to summarize our arguments. Firstly, people will find themselves hesitating to do things. Think about it. When people are watched 24/7 a day, then they will no doubt feel the pressure and find themselves hesitating to do things. Because two beady eyes makes a giant difference. Imagine a person you barely know is staring you right in the eye for a long time, actually 24 hours a day. How would you feel? You will feel very uncomfortable and very awkward. Singing and dancing, as our Prime Minister said, but also personal things such as talking to someone over your phone. Those things will be awkward, and the citizens have the right not to feel this pressure. However, the opposition has attacked our introduction, not the government's arguments itself, and therefore their rebuttals remain invalid. Would it be free? Would it be fair to allow the citizens to be exposed to this psychological pressure, to this invisible big brother that seems to be omnipresent? The second argument we have is the possibility of CCTV being misused. The speaker of our team has given the precedent of CCTV being misused. Those footages are more than just footages. There are our daily lives and the rights that we have. We have the right to be private. However, stealing those information out of that CCTV system is easier than stealing a candy from a baby. CCTVs are extremely vulnerable to being hacked. In fact, elementary school students have been shown the capacity to hack the CCTVs. And also, what's more disheartening than this fact is that the majority knows this fact and can use it whenever they want. If you type the keyword CCTV into YouTube, then the first 60 videos are regarding how to successfully hack the CCTVs, which means that anyone can do it. However, the opposition said, then why would the government do this? And that's what we're saying. Since the CCTVs are ineffective and they are a threat, then we should stop doing it. And the last argument we have is that CCTV gives the threat of sexual harassment. We give the high probability of CCTV being hacked. Now we must ask the question, why would anyone want this footage? Yes, that's a very good question, and I would like to say that in this ethically contaminated world, there are people with sexually perverted tendencies. And imagine what would happen if those people get a hold of the footage of your wives and your children and the people you care about. They might feel a rush of ecstasy of seeing your children playing around or your wife walking down the street. Would you like that? No, I would never want that. The opposition has said that it's the operator's fault, not the CCTV's fault itself. However, these problems will not exist at all if CCTVs do not exist. Nuclear bombs, for example. The nuclear bombs are not the nuclear bomb's fault itself, it's the fault of the user. But does that mean that the whole world should continue on producing these mass effective weapons? I don't think so. Now I would like to rebut and conclude my statement. The first argument the opposition gave was that privacy does not exist in public places. However, we must think about it again. Is it true? Rights are rights and they are given naturally, unconditionally at the moment of birth. It does not matter with the environment, where they are. These rights are omnipresent, they exist with us all the time. And it is not so simple as to the fact that they just disappear when we get out of our houses. And the second and the third argument given by the opposition was regarding the effectiveness of the CCTVs. However, we are not here to discuss, as the Prime Minister has stated, the effectiveness of CCTVs. We are here to say whether or not CCTVs provide a threat to our freedom. And we, the government, has proved successfully that it is. Therefore, we believe that we have won this debate. Also, the government opposition has given abusive uses of POIs and POCs just to cut the speaker's momentum. And also, they have shown lack of concentration since they were asking for sources that the Deputy Prime Minister had shown clearly. Mr. Speaker, as I was researching for this debate, I have come across many definitions of freedom. However, not one of those definitions come close into having the public being pressured by CCTVs. Not one of those definitions come close into people being filmed against their rights. And not one of those definitions say that people being open to the possibility of being sexually harassed is freedom. And that is why, Mr. Speaker, we won this debate. Mr. Speaker, I yield my time.
I'm gonna say that it was a stupid, so we didn't mention about the vaccine.
Their decision.
Well, we can't say that.
That's awesome. I love your
Good job.
They're very good too.
But this is different.
There is until the end of this debate. Yeah. You're the master.
Walk right over it. They waste.
Dude, this is going crazy.
I want to use all the
the analogy is like is good on this like clear on
The first.
you can do it. You can all the pieces just keep on going.
Don't say that.
Okay, that's time.
Mr. Speaker and fellow debaters, I would like to start off with a small story I experienced earlier in the morning. Today, our team decided to meet at 8:30 so that we can prepare for the debate. However, I woke up a little late at about 8:15. So I was worried that I would be late for the meeting where my teammates would be preparing, but I couldn't. However, thanks to the website which has the traffic CCTVs on the website, I was able to come quicker than the time I usually come. Mr. Speaker, the thing is, the government side argues that CCTVs should not be existing because it invades our freedom. However, then what should CCTVs be replaced with? Because there's so many things CCTVs give to us. So, for example, it like secures our safety. That's one of the reasons. And as I mentioned earlier, it also gives us rights to knowledge. Because during traffic, when we're going on holidays to our grandparents' house, it also gives information on which way we can take that's faster. Mr. Speaker, we are not persuaded by what the government side has argued, and we don't sympathize with any single thing they have mentioned about what they have said. First, I would like to go over our reasons first. So to begin, our first reason was about privacy can be protected in public places. As mentioned in our definition, CCTVs is a camera that surveils and secures our safety in public places. Moreover, accountability. So in workplaces, if they put a CCTV in a workplace, people do their work better because there's a CCTV watching them and they can feel that they are being watched. Third, we had citizens' rights to knowledge, and mentioned earlier about the traffic information. And finally, it solves crimes. For example, one was the London bombing incident. So in the train, it was like a suicidal bomb. Although, since it was a suicidal bomb, they weren't charged with anything, but they were able to find out who bombed the train. And also, according to statistics, 20% of crimes can be solved through CCTV. Moving on to, I would like to mention the flaws the government side has mentioned. To begin, they mentioned they challenge our definition, saying that because we don't have a reason for changing it. However, we do have a reason for changing it. Think about the CCTVs in this room right now. Is that a government CCTV? No, it's not. It monitors teachers, but it's still not a government CCTV. So we have an appropriate reason to change the definition. Also, the thing is, they keep blaming CCTVs. They go on and it's because of CCTV, it's because of CCTV. However, the reason they have mentioned, for example, hacking and spying on the woman, isn't it the person who's looking into the person and looking into the person, isn't it their fault? Why? I don't get why the government keeps blaming on the CCTV, saying it's the CCTV's fault. CCTV, just like hammers, is a tool. However, just like hammers, it can be misused to kill people. It's the same with CCTV. It's just a tool, but people misuse it. Also, their definition and their reasons don't exactly, they contradict, because their definition was about the government, was the government camera. CCTV is a government camera. However, they mentioned some reasons, statistics saying that 90% of CCTV goes against the law. However, if it's a government camera, why would it go against the law? So this is a little bit weird. And to mention the flaws, to begin, to mention why we want the government side, when they were doing rebuttal, when we challenged them, the second speaker, when we mentioned about how isn't it the person's fault, not the CCTV, the second speaker has mentioned and said that they're going to address it later. However, they never addressed it in their speech And moreover, the definition of CCTV, it contradicts to their own reasons. They gave an example of 90% of CCTVs goes against the law. But if it's a government camera, why would it go against the law? Because their definition and their reasons contradict. The debate can't flow well. So Speaker, I yield my time.
Oh, I'm tired. Okay, so I can't say who won, and I'm very glad I can't say who won. You both deserve to win. I think that's one of the reasons we do points instead of victories. Just a couple little things for the feedback for you guys going forward with your debate study. You always want to connect your arguments back to the original proposition. So according to the government, the proposition, freedom was comfortably enjoying your rights and threat was tied with danger. Okay? And what was really effective, and Sophie did this, you connected, like the CCTV gave you the right to feel safe. So did you guys see how it connects with the original proposition? Okay? So that's something to keep in mind. No matter what you say, it's always got to tie in. The way to make a strong, to establish a strong position is going to be to connect it to that original. Other than that, anytime you reference some sort of like numbers, 15%, 20 million, you always want to give the source of wherever that's coming from. Okay, whether it's an article or a website, you always want to say $20 billion according to blah blah blah. Okay. All right. Other than that, you guys all agree to give yourself